he started drinking 70 ounces a day, which is a lot.
Yeah, we just said it's like four times as much as what most people have.
What most people drink,
yeah. Like a bag of spinach a day or something, was it? Was it a bag
of full bag of spinach,
per day?
Per day,
Just insane.
And so he just jumped right in, and he had, he went through the detox like in 2 days instead of 3 weeks, like most people would, and he just went through everything really fast. But his results were amazing, also. I mean, he kept texting me. He would be so excited about those results he's getting because he had gotten to this point where he had, gotten kind of all of the results at the gym that he could get. From what he was feeding his body. And then when he started with these smoothies, he was just blown away because he lost. Let me look at. He sent me this text I pulled up. He said, "I'm down 11 pounds in 7 weeks on green smoothies. When I started, I was 205. Today, 194. Stronger, faster, fitter, and more powerful in CrossFit also." And what I found interesting is I never told him what to cut out of his diet. But after a few weeks on smoothies, he felt like his body didn't want red meat anymore. And he was pretty committed to the paleo diet, which if you know what that is, it's pretty focused on meat. It's eat a lot of protein and cut out all the carbs. But he just said, I don't feel like I should be eating red meat. And he also said he had zero desire to drink protein shakes, which he had been very committed to. Said, "I'm drinking 1 full bag of spinach, 2 bananas, 1 apple, a handful of 4 to 6 strawberries every day. I think the protein shakes kept me fat. The calories are way different with greens. I get full with the 70 ounces of green smoothies in a way I never have with shakes." And so, and the things that I loved is he said, besides losing the fat, which you would never have thought he needed to lose any more fat. I mean, he was very built, very defined muscles and didn't look like he needed to lose any fat, but he lost that last little bit. But he also said, even after that first week, that he had this amazing mental clarity that he hadn't had before. And he is he does meditation and all this stuff. I mean, he's very focused, very clear person as it is, but he noticed just kind of a new level when he kind of purified his diet a little bit. So it was fun to see his results because he did jump in so fast, so intense.
I can so relate to it, because it's only like a week since I've started doing it, and it's only been 3 days or something since I actually started on the green smoothies. Since I started on the big spinach hit, and I just can't believe it. I was saying, we were just talking earlier that I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more energized. I feel like there's more of a spring in my step, and I'm all fired up. And the actual thought of eating like a processed food or buying something from a takeaway or something, it just doesn't sit right with me at all. I'm just thinking, I feel like I've stepped into a different world completely. You see all these people at the supermarket and they're buying all this processed stuff and freezing stuff, and why? I feel like I should be in my own supermarket or something. Buying my own thing. I feel like a completely different world. The energy levels are incredible. I can't rave about it enough. Hence why we're having this conversation. So, and it's only been a week in. I don't know what I'm going to be like. I'm going to be insane, motivation wise and energy wise. I think in 90 days. So, I'm well stoked for it.
This is what I love about green smoothies is I feel like diets are all about what we're cutting out and what we're depriving ourselves of, and kind of creates this hole. And people are like, now what can I eat? They go look in their pantry. Well, I can't eat any of this, and I feel like those just don't last. And the more we deprive ourselves of something, the bigger that becomes, the more obsessed with it we become. So I really love to just focus on adding this in. If we add in a green smoothie every single day, then it does make you start to look at the other processed foods as kind of what they really are. And instead of cutting things out. And I've really had to kind of fight this. As people have come into my programs, they're so trained by the diets they've been on in the past that they're sitting there waiting for me to tell them what not to eat. And I don't. I really love for that to come from within, where they're drinking these green smoothies, and then it makes them crave what their body really wants and what it really needs, and then they just naturally cut out the things that are not in the
I think that's massive. Like we were talking about before, you kind of like use an analogy really that other diets, they kind of like dip, and then because they deprive themselves, they generally put on more weight than what they're doing. People who dieting, addicts, aren't they really? They go up and down all the time. Whereas you said, with the smoothies, you kind of like, you feed along, and then you said, your weight dips down. it's a long-term plan, isn't it, rather than just a short-term fix, and the results are long-lasting. I can definitely see what you're saying about the craving, because it just sprung to mind the other day. I was thinking, I just really fancy a baked potato with like tuna in it, and it's like sweet corn. I haven't had that for since I can remember, but I had like a craving for it. So, you know, I absolutely love that about your program and the way you teach it. Is basically just start with these, and then just start taking notice of your body and what you actually feel like your body wants, and it just kind of like comes. It's a bit crazy, actually. I never thought you could do that. You know, I do obviously work with the mind and stuff like that, and allow the feelings to come and trust your intuition. But I never thought I could relate to it in a health way or a food way. Unless you've had a few drinks and it's a takeaway time at the night time, you just eat anything. I just fancy like something like a pizza or something. But I didn't think you could do it in a health way. I find it absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by it.
It's really funny because if you look at animals in the wild, they don't need to be told what to eat or how much to eat, and they eat what's perfect for their bodies, and they aren't obese, and people think, well, that's because they don't have access to enough food, but it's not that. It's about the quality of food, and what really messes up our internal craving system that would tell us the perfect things to eat is the processed foods, these things that we've created as that are not really meant for our bodies. And so to me, I have to constantly remind myself that everybody has this inside them. They have this natural instinct to know exactly what and how much to eat. We've just got to clear out all of the crap that's been, messed with that system for so long, and the emotional attachments and all this stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Whilst we're kind of like on the, you mentioned like animals and the jungle and what they eat kind of stuff. We talk a little bit about protein and that kind of myth, because I know when we'd had a conversation before about protein and the fact that we can get it from animal products and etc. etc. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Because I find that really interesting if somebody's watching that.
Yeah, protein's such an interesting subject, because just looking at kind of where we've come, I remember about 20 years ago when there was this big belief that as long as everything didn't have fat, as long as whatever you ate didn't have fat in it, then you wouldn't get fat.
Yeah.
And I remember I was living with my sister in Boston at the time. I was just 14, and I was babysitting for her there, and she was really big into this. Everybody was, and I remember all the treats she would bring home, and they would have zero fat in them, and it was like you can eat all the sugar and all the white flour and everything you want as long as there's no fat in the food.
Yeah, crazy.
Right? And so everybody did this, and then everybody got fatter.
Yeah.
So then there, years later, this big kind of turn to, okay, so if we're still fat, it must be the carbs, it must be the sugar. So fat's still bad and sugar's bad. So now cut sugar and carbs out of everything. The only thing left is protein. I mean, if you break everything down, those are the three things. Everything is made of some degree of carbohydrates, protein, and fat. And so if carbs and fat are bad, then we must just need tons of protein.
Right, yeah.
So that was kind of where we logically
mental.
And there's this huge belief that, to build muscle, well, muscles are made of protein, then we need to eat tons of protein. And the thing that's so funny is if you ask people, well, where do you get protein? What are food sources of protein? They basically will say, well, meat and eggs and, this magical protein powder.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it's magic. Magic powder.
Magic powder, and they don't really think about where this powder came from or what it's made of. And people are so committed to putting protein in everything that they'll like my idea of green smoothies, and then they'll add protein powder to it or something. And, basically the protein powders that are on the market are made either from whey or soy. So whey is made from milk that is made to grow a baby calf into a cow, right? I mean, that's huge growth.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, definitely.
Let's start drinking whey. And then the soy protein, on the other hand, is, soy is the number 2 most heavily sprayed crop in the United States. It's, very genetically modified and messed with and all this kind of stuff. And it has all these issues of, estrogens and all these hormones and things in it that can cause problems. And so neither of those are a really great source. And And so there are some companies that have come out with more expensive versions of protein powder. And if you look at the ingredients of them, you know, they're really great ingredients. And they're like, you know, green peas and,
Right.
you know, these things that are from plants. And so people will ask me, well, you know, what kind of protein powder? I'm like, well, you could, you know, buy the whey or the soy, or you could get these expensive ones that come from plants, or you could just make green smoothies.
You just eat the plant.
And people don't get that. But proteins, no, it's plants. You know, that's carbs. And they've, you know, oversimplified things.
Yeah.
And the difference, and I think I explained this to you, and I really like to explain this difference, but the difference between animal protein and plant protein is a pretty big deal. So again, it's kind of like diets. Like you said, when you go on a diet, you can drop 30 pounds in 30 days, but it's not going to be a long-lasting thing because your body's going to figure out you're trying to trick it. It's going to panic. It's going to think you're in a famine. It's going to store fat. It's going to make you crave more, and then you're going to give up. You're going to gain 10 pounds more than you started with. The same thing is kind of true of protein. If you're impatient and want to build muscle fast, then the kind of protein you're going to want to go to is animal protein, because animal protein is already in the same type of form that our body would use. Not exactly, but the most similar. So our body's going to be able to turn it into muscle faster, but since it wasn't really quite the perfect form, it's not as durable. Where if our body makes muscle out of plant protein, it's like taking all the little pieces from scratch and turning it into the exact type of muscle fibers that we need.
Right.
And that muscle is more durable. It's going to last longer. If we, you know, get injured or something like that, you're going to notice that your muscle won't atrophy as quickly if it's been made from plant protein. And so I really like this.
Yeah.
You know, the things that you spend a little longer in the beginning and are more patient in the beginning and allow it to be more of an inside-out approach tend to have a longer lasting effect.
Yeah. Do you think that's why you see these like bodybuilders who have been going at it for years and years and obviously taking all these protein powders and stuff like that, and then you see them like they stop, all of a sudden they're just like, it's just awful, isn't it? So do you think that's...
It really isn't. What they do, you know, and each competition that they prepare for and stuff, they do things that are really not building trust with their bodies. It's to get immediate results. But if we focus on things that are like going to really teach our body, look, you can trust me to eat every 2 hours, then our body's going to naturally have a better metabolism. And, you know, those kind of practices aren't going to get these, you know, outstanding, amazing results really fast. They're going to give us a better long-term, you know, just relationship with our body and just results long-term.
Definitely. I can definitely relate to that one. I found that really interesting, the fact, you know, the vegetable protein rather than the animal protein lasting longer, you know, and like I say, it's a long-term relationship, isn't it, rather than just a short-term gain. So I found that myself, you know, when I've spent time down the gym, you know, I go for these stages, and then protein powder, I felt, well, when we first started talking, I felt, well, what am I going to put in this, you know, as I'm going to go out to the gym or go for a run or whatever and just put a smoothie in it? Really? You know, I'll trust you, you know, but it just doesn't seem, it's a mental block, I think. So I'm really glad we shared that, because I think that's really important.
I think you started to say this, and I'd forgotten to touch on this, but what I tell people to kind of help them get over that mental block is, you know, look at gorillas, look at chimpanzees. They eat 95% of their diet is plants. About half greens, just leaves, you know, and the other half is fruit. And then there's this really small sliver of insects and nuts and seeds and bark. And they have huge defined muscles. And it really, you know, when you look at that, then you really can't argue. You know, you don't have to have 30% of your diet be protein.
No.
Able to produce muscle.
No, you don't see like parcels and parcels from Amazon, do you, with big tubs of protein powder going into the jungle? It just doesn't happen, does it? No, they all look great. Ideal client for you, Liz. We kind of like touched on those really a little bit, but obviously you got I can never remember his name. The guy.
Garrett.
For some reason I can never remember his name. Obviously we touched on him, and the women are generally low energy levels. Is there?
The people that, well, you know, honestly, to be honest, if you ask me who's my ideal client, the true answer is anybody who's at that point where they are ready to take that accountability back on themselves. You know, they're like, I need to change. I'll do whatever it takes. Like any person who is at that point is results.